What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of The Force Sensitive. I am joined today, first and foremost, with my host, Mr. Gord.
Hi, how you doing?
So, just as a heads up to everyone, this is 100% his idea. He came to me with this idea, and I couldn't let it slip through my fingers, as Tarkin would say. And I want to be upfront and say that this is a positive outlet for Star Wars. It's about celebrating Star Wars and celebrating people's connection to Star Wars and thus kind of their fandom. So without much further ado, Gord, do you have anything that you'd like to say before we get rocking and rolling with our guest?
Yeah. Star Wars is something that is very special to everyone, including myself. And I've been a lifelong fan, and I wanted to deep dive and find out, what makes everybody tick? Why do you love Star Wars? What does it mean to you? What do you want from it? What do you get out of it? And, what's the love all about?
Absolutely. I think that what we're going to do is we're going to have a different guest on, every time we get to do this show. And I think it's important for a number of reasons. For one, it pumps some new, fresh blood into kind of Nerd Rage and also the larger Cool Table conglomerate, and gets some new voices and some new air, some fresh air. And we're just going to more so take a look at their experience from beginning to end. And, we'll interject and share some stories, I'm sure, along the way. But our first guest today is a gentleman that you may have heard of, especially if you're a Nerd Rage listener, but now you get to hear him himself, and his name is Kalum.
What's up, everybody? How y'all doing?
So, Kalum, one thing that we kind of want to get out of the way, and I already know the answer to this, but we want to kind of establish this early on in order to kind of gauge our questions for the future is, are you a collector as well as a fan?
I am a big collector. So yeah, fan and collector of anything Star Wars, pretty much.
Okay, wonderful. So with that, like I said, like the beauty of this is that it's a podcast that we don't have to do a whole lot of talking. We're more interested in your story. So what is your first memory of Star Wars?
That's funny. I just said that collector thing, and I'm like staring at my floor, and I've got like a B-wing. I got Grandma Moff Tarkin Hot Toys. So yeah, I'm definitely going to emphasize the collecting aspect of that.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So yeah, the as far as like the first memory of Star Wars. So definitely a child of the 80s, right? I'm 38, so I was kind of in that prime target for Star Wars back in the 80s. Oddly enough, when I was a kid, it was more G.I. Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, all that stuff, right? So, like, where I lived, my exposure to Wars was oddly limited. So, like, my first real memory of Star Wars was Return of the Jedi, right? Mm-hmm. So, because it was, it came out like 84, so, I was giant talking teddy bears. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. So, and it was kind of funny, too, because at the time, like, I grew up in kind of a remote, like, a forest and pine trees and all that stuff. So it was like, oh, cool, I live in Endor. It's like,
right.
That's amazing. So it's kind of funny because, like, so Return of the Jedi was kind of my first entry point into Star Wars.
That was the first film you saw?
Yeah. If I can remember, and that was the one that stuck with me just because of that kind of odd, like, forest connection, right? Because yeah, my dad was a firefighter, so we lived out in the mountains because he's, part of the wildland firefighter. So it's like, we live out. Yeah, so it's like he showed me that he loved the redwoods, and so my dad kind of introduced me randomly to Star Wars because of the redwood scenes, and I'm like, looking back on it, I'm like, that is the weirdest entry point to Star Wars that I can probably think of. Like, yeah. So
how was it as a kid? Because Gort actually saw them out of order as well. I guess to an extent we all saw them out of order, but but I saw them in order. I didn't even realize that people would have seen them out of order. How do you think that affected your experience, for better or for worse, do you think?
Like it's really weird kind of looking back because, today I'm like, oh yeah, you got to start with episode 4 or 5, like my exposure as a kid, because again, like, and this is the 80s, right? So it's like there is no streaming services, there is no Blu-rays, there's no TV.
Right.
I think I watched Return of the Jedi on like some copied beta tape that my dad got from his fire station. Like that's how I got exposed. Like I never saw it in the theaters, right? I just kind of like heard about it like word of mouth, right? So like seeing them out of order now, like I mean it still had the same effect. It still captured my attention. It still captured that kind of wow factor for me. So I didn't mind seeing them out of order. And I think as a kid, you can't really process the chronological order of them anyway. So it was just at that time, it's like cool spaceships and lasers and giant teddy bears that kill stormtroopers. So that kind of stuff.
Do you think that was like the first hook for you? Was the Ewoks?
Yeah, looking back, probably. But then,
that just means it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Honestly,
I mean, I was their target audience for marketing. It's like. It was kind of funny back then, but I think like even just like the characters too, like Jabba, like the whole Jabba palace.
Yeah,
scene.
the aliens, the creatures.
The creatures and all that stuff. Like, and actually the space battle at the end when they're going up, against the Death Star too. Like all that kind of stuff. Like as a 4 or 5 year old kid back then, like falling in love with Transformers and all that stuff. Like that just hit all those buttons, and I didn't care that there was a story because shiny stuff was happening. So.
Like a bit of sensory overload there.
Yeah.
And Gort saw 6 for the first film also, right?
No. That was the second one that I had seen. I had seen the first one and had no idea that there was more. That was just a VHS tape, as a small child.
Right.
But the Ewok movies, those were on TV all the time.
Yep.
And I had seen an Ewok on the box of Return of the Jedi. This, I believe, was in a Bradley's, when those still existed as a store.
I remember them quite well.
And we came home with that because it had an Ewok on it, and then that was like the real, legitimate introduction into, okay, there's more, there's Star Wars, there's a universe, and this is fantastic.
Kalum, did you see the Ewok movies as well back in that era? Because we're all about the same age. So it all kind of hit us around the same time. And you remember seeing them on TV?
I remember seeing them on TV because again, we didn't have. I mean, my family was pretty humble. Let's just put that. I come from humble beginnings. Mm-hmm. So, like if it was on TV, yeah, we saw it. So like I remember all the Ewok movies, like more so as a kid than I do most of the main franchise. So I would watch Caravan of Courage and. The giant, I forget what the name is right now off the top of my head, but the giant monster, Gorax, right? Yeah, like that thing freaked me out.
Dude,
right?
me too.
Yeah, because it also too, it was
that thing.
Yeah, it was, just terrible. Like when they're in the cages and stuff, like it reminded me of like I kind of connect that to, because for whatever reason we watched Legend a lot as a kid.
Yeah, me too, dude.
So like the dungeon scenes, like in Ewoks and like Legend, and then like Labyrinth and all those movies, they had kind of that same like big creepy creature and prison, and for some reason there's a bunch of bones because somebody got eaten in a kids movie.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah. So.
Exactly.
But yeah.
So
Caravan of Courage and Ewok movies, I mean, those were like on constant rotation for whatever reason.
So let me ask you this: what was your introduction? Because this is like your introduction into seeing the movies and stuff, and you saw them out of order. Do you think it went? For one, real quick, do you think it went 6, 4, 5, or do you remember it at all? Or did it just become a blur?
A little bit of a blur because I remember watching Jedi, Ewoks, and then I did watch Empire as a kid because, again, it kind of ties back to where I grew up because, we got snow, right? So, like, Hoth, that played, like, a big factor in, like, I would go out and play in the snow in the woods, It's like, I'm a snowtrooper. Oh, there's frozen Ewoks, that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of working backwards from that. And then I realized that, like, I would go visit my grandparents. They lived out there. And, when I got a little bit older and I saw the original Star Wars, I'm like, oh, Grandpa lives in Tatooine, like that kind of stuff.
So you got to play on Endor and Hoth as a kid.
Yeah, and then I had to go visit, for Thanksgiving in Tatooine, which was fine because that was like temporary.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I remember I remember making Hoth. We grew up on the East Coast, so we definitely had snow. Did you 100% make like Hoth scenes outside, Gort, when you were playing as a kid?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I also remember like neighborhood kids like bringing toys out, and like everybody would like you might only have like a handful, and the other kid had a handful, and the other kid had a handful, but like when you all came out together, like now you had like an army of snowtroopers or whatever, you know, or whatever the case may be. I do feel like that kind of element is definitely gone in today's generation. Just as like a side note.
Yeah.
Speaking of that too, taking the toys outside. All we had were ATSTs at one point, not even a proper Hoth vehicle.
Right.
Or most memorable.
Right, for sure. The ATST was kind of like the, did you see that little thing go by? Like, because it's like, I remember
like,
telling...
what was that little thing that, like, for 2 seconds just walked by? What was that?
I remember telling people that there were ATSTs in Empire, and people arguing with me that there weren't. As a kid, like, just talking Star Wars with kids at school or whatever, and be like, yeah, they had them in Empire. Like, no, they didn't. Like, yeah, there's like 1 or 2 scenes. So, what is your first memory of collecting in regard to Star Wars?
So the next funny jump in my kind of history is that, so I remember the movies, right? But I actually never had a Star Wars toy. Because, again, grew up kind of in a... So I'm on the West Coast. I'm in the San Diego area. I grew up in a very remote area of San Diego, which people don't realize. Like, San Diego actually has like mountain ranges and stuff. So I grew up area 6,000 feet up on a mountain, basically, because, again, my dad was a firefighter and he hated people, so he raised us on a mountain, which probably explains a lot about me, but that's another story. So, like, I didn't have... My closest friend was a good 20 minutes away into the next town, right? So he had some Star Wars toys, and I got to see him at school a little bit, but like I myself, my family never bought Star Wars toys. Because, again, it was like, and I was also thinking back kind of in preparation for this conversation was like, Star Wars back then, to me and my family and where we grew up, like it didn't have, like, it was just a movie, right? It wasn't the phenomenon that it is now, right? So it impacted me, but like it wasn't until I want to say like I took almost like a Star Wars break for, I want to say like the 10, 11, 12 years, right? And then I really got back into Star Wars. I think it was around high school, like I'll never forget this story, but so again, remote area, right?
Right.
I just started learning about the magic of computers, right? So like all my other people that go into high school, they were like in 4-H and they wanted to go raise cows. And I'm like, no. I'm going to learn these newfangled contraptions computers. So I went into, my grandfather bought me like this old crappy computer, and I tried to fix it up. And, I got into like kind of computer tinkering. And then I walked in, I'm like, I want to experience a new video game. Because at this time I was also like a big video game nerd, right? So I'm like, computing's the next generation. It's going to be great. Like, I want something that's a super kick-ass video game that's going to take me like beyond Super Nintendo and all that stuff.
Right.
So I walked into a Comp USA. I don't know if anybody knows what that is.
Yes, sir.
We do.
Yeah. So there we go. And I'm like, I want something like Space Battles. Like,
and it was a Star Wars game that you got cued into?
Yeah, so I was, searching the latest and greatest at CompUSA. I think I saw like Final Fantasy VII on the shelf. I was like, nope. But I wanted to come. Yeah, right. So like, I wanted like some kind of space simulator, right? And then I happened to see TIE Fighter sitting on the shelf, and so this is the original TIE Fighter space sim game, all that good stuff. So it came on like 6 floppy disks.
Yeah, I remember.
Or 6 save icons to you younger people out there.
Those games were awesome. The X-Wing, TIE Fighter, all that stuff seemed awesome. Anyway. I would get lost, though. Like, the space was so expansive, it seemed like I would, like, lose sight of the battle. I'd be like, where am I?
I'm just, like, cruising around. But, so I installed that on my, my super lightning fast 486 computer back in the day. And I don't think I've ever been immersed in a game like that, because I was like, oh my god, I am actually flying for the Empire. Like, yes, like, take down those rebels, those sons of bitches. Anyway, so it's like like it was not just like, because again, I mean, like at the time it was like, I think it was like Super Nintendo, like maybe PlayStation was N64. So it's like to make that leap into something that actually had like voices in it, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, you're gonna talk through the mission? Okay, cool. So that kind of hooked me again in those kind of early teenage years, and then I got into the ships. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, like TIE interceptors, those are amazing. Like I started like getting into like the ships and the vehicles, and then that kind of brought me back into Star Wars, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember this as a kid. That's the thing with the Ewoks, and then
Right.
like it went from there, and I'm like, I rediscovered Star Wars around that time. So then I started watching them in order, right? And around this time too, like again, teenage years, right? So you're going through your own emotional roller coasters and whatnot. I'm watching Star Wars. I'm like, anger, fear, aggression. I have all those.
Right.
This is an amazing movie. Like it's talking to me. So like it just became like my, I don't want to say role models, but just something that I used in my life to kind of cope with what, the high school crap that we all go through, right? So just kind of doing.
So that's kind of interesting. Like during the dark times of the franchise, like it kind of it became a dark time for you in regard to the franchise. Like they coincided.
Yeah, because then I kind of rediscovered it, and then you couldn't find anything else Star Wars back then. It wasn't like you could go to the C3PO toothbrush like you can today.
Right.
Like, so you would start like, I kind of, not to be all hipster about it, but I rediscovered Star Wars, man, before it was cool. But, you would, I would talk to some people and they're like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that movie. So like, it kind of like, it was a weird time because there wasn't a lot of information out there, like unless you hopped on like Netscape back in the day, you could maybe you find some images, but like it was before all the internet boom and all that stuff. So, that brought me back into it. I hunted down the VHS tapes. I started watching them. Like, my parents were just trying to make me. I mean, they didn't really know much about Star Wars anyway, so they were like, okay, yeah, it's kind of a movie that came out when we were in high school, but what do you care? It was kind of like this weird, like, why are you going back to this thing?
Right.
So it was kind of a weird transition period, and then I don't want to say shortly after, but I think it was like around this time when I started playing TIE Fighter, getting back into it. That's when like I think the special editions were just on the horizon, right? So it was like kind of that resurgence was coming. Mm-hmm. So that was when it went full blast, like crazy with the Star Wars stuff.
What did you feel about like when you saw trailers for the special edition and what have you, and then saw the special edition, and then afterward, like what were your reactions? Because Gordon and I were actually talking about this earlier today on the phone, and like it seemed like it became a controversial thing, but not until much later on. Like it seemed fairly positive at the time to me. And
all the debates that you'd hear about some of the changes, I think people were too excited in the moment before they hit the theaters to really consider what the impact might be. You were excited like, hey, did I see they might be doing the Wampa there? Look at that new creature.
Right.
Look at this updated space battle shot. That's what you're, going to see. But the arguments, like you say, they come later. But what's your initial reaction there when you had seen these trailers?
Oh, my mind was blown because, I mean, again, I missed the original releases, obviously. I have vague memories. Maybe I saw Return of the Jedi in the theater, but I don't really remember it. So I didn't have that wow factor. So like, again, teenage years, right? Like, just getting into this thing, and all of a sudden, like, from what I remember, this is the first time to see it in theaters since I want to say almost, the original releases, right? So I was like, oh yeah, like this is amazing. Like I don't care. I get to go sit in a movie theater and see The Crawl, that's all I care about, like there might have been like a couple theaters around San Diego that were doing like the vintage movie nights, right? But it was like tiny screen and whatnot. So, but I mean, when I saw those trailers, I was like, yes, this is it. Like I get to finally experience, what this is on the theater. And I didn't care that, Han steps on Jabba's whatever. Like,
right.
And I again, it was like that kind of like ignorance is bliss type environment because again, there wasn't like Facebook or MySpace or even GeoCities back in those days where people were like, "This sucks, social justice warriors," like that kind of stuff wasn't there. It was just like, "Oh shit, Star Wars, yay!" Well, that's what it was.
Also, I mean, I think that people they lose sight of how mind blowing that CGI was for its time.
Oh yeah.
Like now you kind of look at it with like after seeing Endgame and you're like, well, who did this with crayons?
Yeah.
but like at the time it was like, holy smokes, like that's Jabba the Hutt. Like, and like, did you ever see the like the behind the scenes, like from Star Wars to Jedi or whatever it was? It was like a straight
Yes.
yeah, right. And they showed one of those scenes of Jabba that was cut out from the original film, like where he's like wearing like a fur coat, it's like pimping.
Yeah,
that's one of the few major things that you got out of one of those old documentaries, and that's just that small taste. Like that there's always going to be something that's, and maybe not as a child, you don't realize that there's a lot of extra footage that's cut from movies or straight scenes or 30 or 15 seconds, but
right,
that's a major scene right there for a major character that George had envisioned from the get-go. You don't get to see him till Return of the Jedi, and a massive change from, a stand-in guy who they were supposed to mat like a creature over in Post to this big slug creature, and then there it is one day, 20 years later that they do it.
Yeah, and it was like for I think if you'd seen that scene from that documentary, you were like saw how they did it, like, and it was like amazing. Yeah. It was like they colored in a Jabba over top of this dude, and. Now it doesn't, the effect of it doesn't hold up as well, but I think people lose sight of that for its time it was cutting edge.
Yeah, because I mean, like Jurassic Park was kind of the first big CG movie that hit, right? And then that's like from there on out, it was like that was our benchmark, right? Yeah. So like even like the original Jabba footage, right? Like it's some dude that looks like he skinned a bear because he's wearing like a bear skin like coat, right?
Yeah,
and it's like. We inserted Jabba the Hutt into this. So like that doesn't happen.
Right.
I mean, this is what, like 96, 97, something like that? Like
97, I think.
That
97.
Yeah. That was new and groundbreaking, right? So the fact that you could actually move Han up in frame and that's another thing. It's just like it's not like they could just jump in like, Photoshop and something or do that. Like that wasn't around then. They had to like create that on their own. So that was kind of the controversy wasn't there as bad as I remember it.
Yeah, no, not at all. Do you remember anything in seeing those three that you were disappointed by? Like I do. I remember a couple of things that I was like, what? But do you remember anything that you were like, man, they changed that?
There was a few little things like for A New Hope when they're coming into Mos Eisley and there's like the droid like taunting each other. I was like, really, you need to do that? Like the like that kind of thing. Like little moments like that. I'm like, what did I just watch? But I mean, for the most part, like the most egregious one was Return of the Jedi. Right?
Yes,
like you don't need to mess with
that. Was too much.
Don't need to mess with that. Yeah,
that's the one I felt like was too much immediately. Like,
and I get why they did it.
But I don't even like the song. Like I like that Lapty Neck jam. You know what I mean? Like the new song was trash. The and then that Waza or whatever his name was, like he seemed like he didn't belong in that world to me.
Yeah, he was too
Muppet.
Yeah, like the big nose and everything, and I'm like, what are you, Dr. Teeth?
Like the swinging tonsil.
Yeah.
It was too much. But what about?
Do you feel that
go ahead.
Something like the innards of his mouth there. That's like it's just them showing off the CGI.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is there any other reason for such a thing?
No, not at all.
It doesn't look good.
There's a lot of mouth action in that scene. I'm like, why do we got to see his tonsils and why do we got to see what's her name, Slide Noodles, like close up? Yeah, I'm like, I don't need to see any close ups and no alien mouths right now. Like, it's fine. Just move along.
And that music, man, that music was so like. It was too much.
Yeah.
Very poppy.
Yeah, and like poppy in like a old sense that didn't it didn't fit. For some reason, the 80s pop music still seemed right with it from Lapti Nek, you know?
It's interesting. I like how it opens up like trumpet sound, and then it immediately just goes off to something else.
Yeah.
Well, and then and what kind of ruined it for me was just like, not ruined. Like again, I wasn't like nerd raging back in the day. I was like, oh, that's kind of disappointing and weird.
Right.
Like I understand they want to make it like like a part of hideout and yeah. But like what I was kind of most disappointed when it took away from the suspense. Ula's death and the Rancor scene.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like and again, kind of going back to like the limited memories I have, but like that Rancor scene freaked me out as a kid, right? Because there was like some serious like danger and like Jabba's not to be messed with at all.
Yeah, and it was
but
like
then,
as they said, like the damsel and the dragon. Like it really was that.
Yeah. But then when they intercutted that with the new musical number, it took away a lot of that suspense from that scene and kind of made it more just kind of jokey. And
I'll tell you what, though, Ula like didn't age a lick.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
She came back. She looks the same.
It's exactly
and that's
the same.
One of the big interesting takeaways from that whole sequence there. Like they were able to throw her right back into the action.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Like literally throw her in the pit. Like get back in there. Like,
and I've seen her in person. She's gorgeous today. Black don't crack, baby.
or green.
Yeah, we're green. Green don't. I gotta come up with a word for that. So the other thing is, I wanted to ask on the flip side of that. Do you remember anything that you were like, "Wow, that was awesome"? Like that makes this so much better to me.
Death Star battle.
Yeah,
because again, tying back into the TIE fighter, the ships, the vehicles, and stuff. Like I remember seeing the trailer, and it's when they did that pan like around the X-wings when they're coming up on Yavin, and like the whole.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my god,
that was in the trailer.
Amazing.
That was one of the big trailer moments.
That was like the big selling point. I'm like, I don't care. They could do anything. Like I just want to see that. So like the updated space battles was amazing to me. Like. Because I love like the dog fighting and all that stuff. Like, I even started getting into World War II footage, like watching that kind of stuff to see where they took the reference from.
Really?
But like, yeah, I was just like, and then that kind of sent me down like a history moment, like trying to figure out like the different Anyways, it was that was probably one of the highlights. I was like, that's worth it. So,
I remember for me, like when I mean, obviously, there's things like the Wampa and stuff, which was great to see. Don't get me wrong, but like, for me, the stuff that I enjoy still to this day the most is like the small, subtle stuff, like just like taking away a wall of Cloud City and you can see out into the city, or opening up a window in Cloud City, or seeing the Millennium Falcon rise out of Docking Bay 94, or you know what I mean? Little stuff like that like, and not for nothing, like it really has helped. And I know this is like controversial to say given some of the climate, but like it kind of has helped those movies age well, because with those updates, it's held on a bit longer. I feel like, even for better or worse of some of the choices, like it still doesn't seem like you're watching. Like go watch Tootsie. It looks like you're watching an old movie. Do you know what I mean? But
like grainy and everything.
Yeah, but Star Wars doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, I think. Sorry. Go ahead, Gordon.
Okay, playing into that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend from work. He had never seen any of these movies. He had grown up in the Dominican Republic and moved here when he was about 10. And it's a different culture for him. He just had never seen them.
Sure.
So he came over one day because I hyped it up. We watched the first Star Wars movie, and we watched the Blu-ray copy because I figured at some point he's not going to know the difference. But he said it looks like a brand new movie the way that it's filmed. Like he could tell that it's old. He knows it's old.
Right.
But it looks new.
Right.
Like it's pristine. It's this gritty world. Like it feels like you're in a place, and it doesn't. Nothing about it felt fake to him. Like he got sucked in, and he was asking a lot of questions. And maybe we can come back to some of that later, but for a bit more of a discussion.
Sure.
But one of the questions he asked me is, why is the Empire bad? I was like, well, what do you mean? And he says, why are they being rebelled against? I was like, oh. And from just the movie standpoint, just what you know in that movie, there's not a solid answer.
Yeah, there's really not.
That's a different discussion.
Well,
for
I guess
later.
I guess maybe with the exception of blowing up Alderaan.
You get it as you watch the movie.
Right,
but,
right. But like not in those first seconds, you don't get it.
No, not at all.
So let me ask you this, Kalum. Being as though like the 97, the redone, re-edited, special editions, kind of brought you back into the fold. Would you say that is what started your collecting aspect to it?
Yeah. So, it's kind of funny because so again, went to a remote high school. I had a class of like 70 people, right? So I had we kind of doubled up on high school stereotype. So I was like smart ass nerd skater, but I was too fat to skate. But I hung out with the skaters. So I mean, we kind of had to take multiple roles. But so we lived. It was about 30 minutes from like the nearest like mass retailer, right? So what we would do is like when you turned 16, you would automatically get your license because license meant freedom, right? You could drive, everywhere, right? So we would. I was actually the youngest of all my friends, and so like I relied on rides. I'm like, "You guys going downtown? Okay, can we go see Star Wars? Okay, let's go." So like 4 of us would go, and then they started releasing the Power of the Force line, and so my one buddy, who I actually had a Anakin Obi-Wan fallout with, but that can be told another time. But he was the guy that had the Star Wars kids when I was. Star Wars toys when I was growing up, right? So he didn't really have much of an imagination. He didn't care about toys. He wanted to make money off of them because he's like, dude, these are like, we could resell these and make millions of dollars. And, we're like 16, 17 years old. We're like, yeah, millions of dollars. This is going to be great.
Right.
So like we would all pile in the car and go down to like the nearest mall, which was like 30 minutes away from us, and hit up KB toy stores and try to find like Power of the Force figures, right? So, I still have this thing with like, I need to find a red card Jawa, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do recall those. Like, does
this Boba Fett have a circle or a half circle? Like that kind of stuff, like hunting through the back. Yeah.
Long sabers and all that.
And that's the only reason why I really knew about R5D4 is because I was trying to find the damn red card for him.
Right.
So that kind of like sparked like it wasn't really necessarily out of collecting, but it was collecting to make a profit, which sucks when I look back at it. But it kind of kickstarted that like hunting habit. Like let's go find the tools, let's go grab them, let's like start collecting. So.
It's one of the questions that I'm looking forward to, like kind of casting a net. Is how important? It's like a 2-part question. Like 1, how important is it, and 2. How does it change the kind of collector path for an individual to start Star Wars with 3 3/4? Like, I was talking to a buddy actually just this morning, and I just found out that he's like into geeky stuff. I had no idea, and he was talking. He was like, "Yeah," he's like, "I got a little room for my stuff, and I got all my vintage Star Wars stuff like on card." Hanging up on the wall. And I was like, man, that's cool. And he was like I got like just the red card. And I was like, oh my God, we're talking about 2 different vintage things, aren't we? But that's what that line means to him, and it has the same meaning for him. He's significantly younger than that the original has for me, even though the originals, most of them were out before I was, I was born, but they kept recirculating those toys. They didn't go out of production until like 84, 85. So I'm just kind of curious to see how that, because I think that how inexpensive they were and how it kind of like seasoned people and fans into this. Well, I can have them all. I can have every character. Like the blind chick in the back of the bar. Yeah, I can get her. She's available.
I get the ring card keeper without a shirt. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Give it to me.
And I think I wonder if that doesn't now I think you're doing Hot Toys, I'm doing Hot Toys, like I'm doing quarter scale Star Wars stuff now, and quarter scale I'm like, you know what? I just need a Gambit, and the X-Men are represented, but like Star Wars, I'm like, nope, I need them all. I need every main character. I need one of each at least. And I can't help but think that that's all tied back to that 3 3/4 mentality. Like you just become seasoned into it.
I mean, certainly from the 90s there, you have deals left and right. I remember them being $1 and $2.99 at most stores, but it would be buy two, get one for $1 in Toys R Us all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had a ton of Bosks. I'd rip the heads off and his arms off and putting, gloves and other hands on him, making him into
new
like
spaceman.
pilots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy in the cantina that looks like Bosk without the mask on.
With the space helmet.
Yeah.
I did that one. I have a box of those somewhere. I sold some of my older Star Wars stuff at one point in time, and I don't. But I couldn't find this box of customs. It's somewhere in a basement. I have to find that.
So the next thing that we kind of wanted to touch on is what memories, if any, and what consumerism aspects played into this property in regards to Shadows of the Empire.
Good one. So, so I got the game on N64, right? That was kind of my first introduction.
I had it too. Gort, did you have it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So, okay, we're all checked off there. We're all checked off there. We're 1 for 1 so far.
I don't think I ever played it past Hoth, because I was like,
Hoth was hard,
throwing
dude.
controllers.
The Wampa was hard.
Yeah.
You had to, light him up with, 30,000 laser bullets to,
Yeah. After a while, I was like, nope, don't care. I kind of, and it's kind of funny going back to the toy line. So I had the game.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, I take that back. I rented the game back in the day. When you go down to the video store and rent a game.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of got to the Hoth level, and then what would happen was my younger brother was coming up. He's 8 years younger than I am, and he kind of started getting into the toys. So Shadows of the Empire was coming out. The Power of the Force line was releasing the Shadow of the Empire's characters.
Correct.
So the Mohawk Chewbacca or the flat top Chewbacca.
So you got Power of the Force figures.
I got to jump in real fast. That is my favorite Star Wars figure, that Chewbacca.
He's got the eye patch with the flat top. It's
I fucking love that thing.
Yeah. So you
it's militant. It's like punk rock Chewbacca. No.
Did you get any of those figures?
So I got them because, again, my collecting mentality was different back in the day. It was I'm going to hoard these and I'm going to make millions of dollars. They're all collector's items, So I did get I think I got a double of Princess Leia, and I opened her up and I put it on my little drawing desk that I had. And I think that was the first there's a figure outside the box and I'm displaying it in a, in a slightly I'm going to make money off this way. So yeah, and that kind of when I started learning more about, that's when I started getting into the bounty hunters, and that hooked me as far as that kind of storyline.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. You played the game, you rented the game, you bought some figures.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read the book?
I never actually read the book.
Okay. Did you partake in the soundtrack?
I did not in the soundtrack.
Okay,
yeah.
So you're
in fact, I was kind of not sure that there was a soundtrack. But.
And I'm going to throw in the audio book as well.
Well, there's so much card game, comic book.
Yes, all of that. So, Gort, did you read the book?
Yes.
So I did too. Let me ask you this, and we're not supposed to be talking about each other on this show. We're supposed to be talking about our guests. But what did you think of the book?
I'm trying to remember how it opened. I think with the bad guy,
Shizor.
Yeah, getting an introduction to him, and that was kind of nice. You get this bit of a third side to the whole angle there. But look, this is an in between of the movies, and you're getting an answer to something that you might have wanted to know about, and I was all in. What's everybody doing? How do we get Han back?
See, I was a little disappointed with it. And I think it's because I'd already read Heir to the Empire and all that kind of stuff. And I think in my mind, I was just ready to move forward. And I felt like this was holding me back. I felt like Anakin.
Yeah, I got you.
Did you throw the book across the room?
Yeah. And then I killed all the women and children.
You slaughtered them like animals?
Like animals. I hate them. But I remember like reading it and I was like, man, like first of all, I don't even like this idea of this other guy like pushing up on Leia. Like I was turned off by that. And
you're talking about Dash?
Yeah. And then Shizor, I couldn't figure out what his name was. You know what I mean? Like I was a resource room kid. I was calling him Exisor and all sorts. You know what I mean? Like, and then the fact that like it just took place in this weird time, and it was my first kind of experience, and we deal with this more now in this era for better or worse. But it was my first kind of experience with like something that was added material that didn't need to be consumed to enjoy the material. Like when you read Heir to the Empire and all that stuff, like it made everything a bit more rich. But I felt like this one is like, man, like you could skip this and it's inconsequential. But it did age well for me because I had the audiobook, I read the novel, I had some of the figures, I didn't get all of them. I think I kind of want a Dash Rendar now, but I like purposefully didn't get him during that time because I was like, nah, this dude's pushing up on Han's girl. I'm not having it. And I got like the guard thing with like the antennas that stuck out of his head, and I got Shizor, and I think that was it. But I did everything but the soundtrack, and you did the soundtrack.
I did, yes.
And you stand by that soundtrack still to this day, do you not?
It's a good soundtrack.
I have to listen to it.
I'm gonna go have to find that now.
It's a mix of music from the video game and then original music, but it's good. It's definitely good.
I'm gonna check it out. Okay,
it's the only thing from the entire production I don't think needed to be there, but you're getting to this.
Yes,
I think it was. I was gonna say one quick note on that. Because you couldn't escape that, right? Back in those days,
nope.
Right? So
No.
I think it was probably the first exposure a lot of us had to just, I want to say, expanded universe or like the side stories,
yes.
So like, I think that's what, even though like I wasn't fully into it, like because of the game, I knew the basics of the story, and I forget how the hell, like I didn't read the book, but I knew the entire story, right? I might have read the comic when it came out finally, but it did its job for me in a roundabout way because it gave me more of that kind of third faction that I kind of like, the underworld, right? So like it kind of got me more into that and be like, oh man, you don't have to be a good guy, you don't have to be a bad guy, you can be a bad sort of good guy, like that kind of stuff. Right. So I think it did its job in that respect, so that it kind of did crack open that universe just a bit more.
So you know that was used as a litmus test to kind of how to market the prequels, right?
Yeah.
And the prequels came behind it. So do you remember the first time that you saw the Phantom Menace trailer?
I remember like the first 100 times I watched that thing.
Dude, it's still one of the greatest.
How many days did it take you to watch that?
Right. No, we got to go to Apple QuickTime and watch the trailers on the trailer tab because, like, that's the only place it was.
It is still one of the greatest Star Wars trailers ever put together.
Yeah,
I stand behind that to this day.
I still get goosebumps from it. Like,
yeah,
I used to joke, like in my younger, angry years, I was like, I wish I saw that movie. But
it just seemed like it was going to be the richest Star Wars story ever told. Like, you know, I can't. I had this vivid memory. I'll probably tell this 1,000 times here, but like of going to see. I saw it during the opening of Waterboy. Didn't give one single care about Waterboy for the entire time after seeing it at the beginning. Went to my buddy's house afterwards. I was like, you're not going to believe it. I saw a trailer for the next Star Wars movie, and like the whole room stopped. And what's funny to me about that moment is, first of all, if you were to have been in this room with the characters that were in this room, and it was probably a good 15 people, the last thing that you would think would make an impact is that sentence. But the room came to a standstill, and they were like, what was it like? And I was telling them, I was like, man, it's like it's rich. It's like seems like it's like castles, and there's this woman in red, and it's like she has this elegant dress, and it's like it's so vivid, and it's so like there's like these creatures on these like walking through the fog, and they look like they're like warriors, and I was like, and then at the very end, there's like this guy, and he looks like Satan. And and I was like, and he brings out a lightsaber and he turns it on, and they were like, nice. And I was like, and then he turns on the other side of it, and they were like, what? Like
you're like watching mine.
Yeah, like everybody's like just falling apart. Like couldn't get a grip on it. It's still like that trailer. I still probably watch it once a year at least. That every saga has a beginning and all that, like it, and then when you started seeing like the promotional stuff with like the kid walking with the Vader silhouette, and like that was a well marketed film.
Well, it's like even like the what are they called, the tone poems that they released, like the individual like character, the haikus.
Yep,
dude, I still quote that I quote, in my head.
I quote Maul's.
Yeah.
Fear attracts
Maul's,
the fearful.
And then even Qui-Gon's was like super inspirational for some reason.
I don't remember his.
His is good, but like anytime I'm watching anything about politics, I'm like the corrupt. Like I'm like reciting the Maul thing in my head. Like
yeah.
It did its job. Like they were really well done. So
and then had like a music video. How bizarre is that?
Yeah, the Duel of the Fates music video. Like I watched that. Like I recorded that on VHS. And I rewind like. Zzz, clunk. Okay, let's watch that again.
Yeah.
Zzz, clunk. I think that's Darth Maul in the desert. Like.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean the rollout to that thing was insane. So.
Well, that is probably the best rolled out Star Wars movie of all time.
Yeah.
So then you see it.
I don't say it like that.
No. I don't even mean it like that. But you see it. And how did that feel?
So I remember it well because I was like it was at the end of everything, and then it just cuts the credits, and I was like, huh. Like it was kind of like a moment for me. I was just kind of like, wow. Like it was kind of it was like I've come to terms with the prequels. Like I've wrestled with them for many years, and I've accepted them. Right, like it's fine.
Yeah, me too. I love them for what they are.
Now I kind of look back fondly, and I'm like, yeah, it's all right. Some of the dialogue, but like at that moment, I remember it being like the first time I felt like disappointment in a movie, and I was like, that didn't really match up to what I thought it was going to be. Like it was like this weird like, that's it for Darth Maul. Like,
yeah,
what the hell? Like,
that was a
like,
bummer.
Yeah, I was like, that they just killed the. Really? Like, it was weird. Like, the opening scene with like them landing in the ship, the Trade Federation ship, and like the escort ship getting blown up. Like, I loved all of that for some reason because it felt like, oh my god, this is Star Wars, but it's new and shiny and da da da. And like as the story progressed, I was like, it's kind of. There's some slow parts and all this, and then like just at the end, like the lightsaber fight blew my mind. Right? Like,
right? Yeah, of course.
I mean, I say I'm disappointed, but I saw the damn thing like 25 times in the theater.
Yeah,
like,
I saw it 12 times. It's the movie I've seen the most in the theater.
Yeah, and it was just strictly for the last like 5 minutes in the fight, because it was amazing. Like I still get goosebumps, like where they first square off, and it's Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and Maul does like the flip, and then he does like the force throw with the droid head to open the door.
Yeah, that's the best. That is the single best moment of that fight.
Yeah, and I'm just like, holy shit! Like that was like amazing to me, right? And then it's the first time where I think I bought into the hype train,
Yeah.
Because that was the first train that I had been a part of. And then it didn't quite live up to those expectations. And then from there on out, I was like, I didn't even mind. Like the pod race was like, looking back subjectively, like I liked the pod race. That was kind of cool and interesting. Jar Jar, it is what it is. He's not as bad as I remember it, because I remember coming out of that like, Jesus Christ, what was that thing? Like, like if there was forums back in those days, I would have been one of those guys. George Lucas last time, but I bought into that too. Like I kind of rode the hate train for a while too, because I was like, this isn't what I expected. This isn't the fan fiction I made up in my head about the origin of Darth Vader. And then it was just like, it's kind of like jumping far ahead for episode 8, like the hate that 8 got. I actually respect the prequels more because of that, because what I kind of realized through this whole process is it's not my story, right? Like, I walked into the prequels with pre-existing things of how I think the story of Darth Vader should have been told. It didn't go that way. I got mad for no.
Right.
So that's like where I was. That's kind of where like this journey has led me to like acceptance. So.
It's funny because you say you saw it like 25 times in theater. I saw it 12 times. Gord, do you remember how many times you saw it?
4.
So like we all went like. It took me a long time to come to terms with the idea that it wasn't great.
Yeah.
Like. I was so I needed a new Star Wars movie so bad after that, from 83 to whatever 99. Like I needed it so bad that it took me so long to see kind of like the problems and see how it turned people off. And I still like a lot of that movie. It's just at the end of the day, like it's just. There's probably only a half hour of it that's actually relevant to the trilogy. Like, all you really need to do is find the kid and have him kind of have a messed up reason to how he gets off planet. And then a little controversy as to whether or not he should be trained. And that's it. That's it. Like, there was we saw it sitting on DVD somewhere and, like, read the back of it. And, like, the back of the description on, like, this DVD, I couldn't tell you what release of the DVD it was, but everything was in reference to 4, 5, and 6. Like, it was all it was all like, find out the story of Darth Vader, the evil Sith Lord that ruled the Empire for many years and was ultimately taken down by, Luke Skywalker and the Emperor. Find out how him and Obi-Wan Kenobi, the hermit that lived on Tatooine, that's like, what I mean? Like it was all of this. But yeah, that Darth Maul, he carried that movie like on the strength of how cool that character design was. He carried it so far for me.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Gary, who Nerdrage listeners are familiar with that, and Gary's like going on this rant about how he's happy that George Lucas didn't do 4, 5, and 6 now. And I was like, why? And he was like, because Darth Vader's the coolest looking character you've ever seen. He'd have killed him in the first 15 minutes. There was like, I knew a lot of people that were heavy Star Wars fans. I saw it so many times because my buddy Mario and I would just go. Like, we would just go to that, like you go get like an ice cream cone in the summertime. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing for the next couple hours? Nothing. Well, let's go see Star Wars. Okay. And we would just go.
Yeah. It got to the point where it was like, hey, do you want to go see that lightsaber fight? Okay, cool. Like, that's pretty much what it was. Like,
and you'd always, like, after you'd seen it a couple times, you always would go to the bathroom like a half hour before, so that you knew you were going to be primed and ready for that lightsaber fight.
For that movie, did you guys go see it at midnight?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, we paid a guy $40 to not wait in line and just get in front of him when we got there.
My mom waited online to get the tickets for that movie. They took a picture of everybody waiting online. She was in the newspaper, like front and center.
Oh, wow.
Star Wars tickets.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another story. Like, these kids, like, the movie theater sat up on this hill, and all of a sudden, like, these water balloons start, like, coming our direction from, like, being out on this line. And, like, we all ran over to this hill, and it was, like, these, like, jock type dudes, like, throwing water balloons at the nerds in line. But, like, I was with a gang of goons at this time. This is 99. I'm in primetime goon era. And, we chased them all into their trucks and off they went. But that was the first time I'd kind of experienced any kind of like, like nerd hate, like the wedgie. You know what I mean? Like, that's the closest I've ever seen to like a jock giving a nerd a wedgie.
That's interesting because even like the high school experience that I had, where again, small friggin' country, Friday Night Lights, yeah, like that kind of crap.
Yeah.
Like my four buddies, because again, we kind of played multiple roles. We were like the smartasses that were cool with pretty much everybody, right? But we had this like, oh yeah, we like Star Wars. Go fuck yourself. Like we weren't like the nerds that were like segregated into like the cafeteria, that could come out, But like even still, to say that you like Star Wars back then, it was kind of like a hush hush.
Yeah,
no, dude, no, I do push-ups. Like
it wasn't easy. Like you had to say it and then sell it at the same time.
Yeah, or if you liked it, you had to have pretty strong confidence, or like some other like backup talent.
But look, I can juggle.
I like Star Wars. It's like, look at this kickflip I can do. Like, again, whatever. But and that's kind of like it's kind of funny about like the prequels too, because it kind of it was kind of like the secret thing, right? Like you like Star Wars? Wow, that's cool. But then like when for better or for worse, the hype train it brought a lot of people out. So you could see like, oh wow, there's a lot of people like Star Wars, and it was kind of like there's some bandwagon people, of course, but like the whole process was like going from like this secret, yeah, dude, cool, to like standing in line at midnight with like hundreds of other people like celebrating this thing. Like that's still a cool moment for me, because I was like, oh, there's a lot of people that like this stuff. That's cool. Like,
what about Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith?
So I probably have a very unpopular opinion, but looking back on it, I actually think Phantom Menace is probably, to me, the most Star Wars-like of the prequels. And I don't know if it's just for whatever reason, the imagery, the shots they use, the kind of the story, like hits more with me. Like Attack of the Clones, I was super pumped for. I was like, yeah, we're gonna see like Boba Fett, because I remember reading on a part that him and these warriors were going against the Jedi on his toy card, and we're gonna see all the Mandalorians. And then it's like, oh, son of a bitch, there's just one guy,
right?
And it's not even so like, because I started getting into like the underworld, the Mandalorian, like Boba Fett, because it's like just again. I think I picked like Star Wars role models, and I'm like, he doesn't give a shit about anybody. Thing. I want to be like him. He's like Wolverine of like Star Wars. I want to be like that guy.
Right. And
then he died like in a stupid way. But like when Attack of the Clones came, and like when they at the last scene when you finally see the clones and they cut away, I'm like, what was that? What the hell was that? Like the clones didn't attack anything. Like this is stupid. Like, and it kind of like, to be honest with you, it kind of that 2 and 3 kind of fed more into my prequel hate than Phantom Menace. Because Phantom Menace, I'm like, it's not great, but the story could have launched so many different ways, beyond that. How they went and proceeded with the rest of the storytelling, like, and to be honest with you, like, Attack of the Clones, I don't think was necessary. Like, I liked some of it, but it failed on a lot of aspects for me, and then Revenge of the Sith is probably the one that let me down the most.
Really?
Wow.
And I know that's extremely unpopular opinion, but it was just...
I'll share a little bit of the opinion there with Episode 1. Like, looking back, I enjoy that one the most out of the 3. Revenge of the Sith coming, little closer to that one than 2 does. 2's far down there. But the excitement for those movies when they were coming out was too great for me to really dislike much about it. It's really only looking back that I have any negative opinion. And 2 has some extremely rough dialogue. Like it's hard to sit through some of that. It's uncomfortable.
Like floating pears and whatnot. I'm like, really?
Oh, it's
really.
Well, special. I mean, I'm on record saying this, but the hardest dialogue for me in the prequels is in 3, and it's because I'm so in love. No, it is because I am so in love with you. Yeah. Oh, then love has blinded you. No, that's not what I like. Oh.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, that's great.
But I think that fight scene, and obviously not the Yoda one, although that probably needs to get discussed. But I think that Obi-Wan Jango fight scene is one of the best Star Wars fight scenes to this day.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I like the fact. So, like, let me back that up. So even though I just ripped on 2 and 3. At the time, I agree with you, Gord. Like, I was still excited, right? And there were still moments. Like, I never lost that steam until like after the prequel trilogy was done, and then that's when I went to the dark nerd side and just started kind of ripping on them. And then it was almost like grief. Like, I had to deal with it to like figure it out in my head and like, okay, fine. Fuck, he floated a pear to her. That's fine. Whatever. So like, but the Django fight to me, because again, Mandalorian, I think they're cool.
Yeah.
But the fact that some dude went hand to hand with a Jedi, that was amazing.
Exactly, and not just hand to hand, but kind of like hand to hand in a I don't care, like that. There's nothing about your sorcery and your magic sword that scares me in the least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that attitude, I feel like Django in that scene captures how for some reason we see the Mandalorians without actually ever seeing that side of them.
Yeah, like they go like they're not afraid. Like,
they're not afraid. Because
everyone else, anytime Jedi is mentioned in any of the prequels, they're like, ooh, like, I don't want to sell you death sticks. No, like that kind of stuff.
Mufasa.
But like, yeah, exactly. But Django's like, nope, I'm going to hit you in your beard.
Yep, don't care. Let's go. Don't care.
Yeah. And I think you'll
bleed
really
just like me.
Yeah, and I think that really set him up. Like, even though he had kind of a Darth Maul role where I was really looking forward to him playing a bigger part, but he kind of got cut out of it with his head. He still that moment, like the moments that he was in there, made an impact on me, and I'm like, yeah, dude, like you didn't back down, like that's awesome.
So let's talk about the Yoda scene too, because that has to get addressed.
Yeah, I cheered.
Dude,
I'll admit it.
I screamed.
Everybody cheered.
It's the only time I've ever screamed in the theater. Like in my life, I screamed, "Oh my God!" at the top of my lungs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the swag, right? Like it was like the the music, the way he pulled back the cloak but grabbed the lightsaber with the Force. Like he could have just done both. You know what I mean? But it was like a flex.
Yeah.
Like it was the style. I know people like they criticize that scene now, like the leaping frog. That scene still seems badass to me when I watch it. That's one of the ones I don't get the criticism, like the modern criticism for at all. And I don't feel like I heard it then.
I think it looks a little hokey. Just the CG.
I don't know.
What gets me is the Yoda scream. Like, what the hell is that? Like, if I was Dooku, I'd be like, dude, chill out. I'm going to go back on my spaceship and just hang because I don't know what the hell that was, but I don't want to hear it again.
I give up.
You win. War's over.
Yeah, the scream was a bit much. I will admit that.
But I remember because I had to go see episode 2 again because it was one of. Looking back, yeah, it's kind of hokey.
How many times in the theater?
Twice.
I think I only saw that one like
4.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I was single digits, but I apparently didn't have a lot to do back then. Definitely didn't have kids, so I could go see movies. That's awesome. But
yeah.
But like I had to go see it again because I was screaming and the whole theater erupted so much. Like, watch the damn fight because everyone's like, "Oh my God, yeah!" It's like, I think he won. Let's go back and watch it again. Like it was.
I still think to this day it's the biggest crowd reaction I've ever seen in a theater.
Yeah. And I think for what it was in that moment, living in the moment and whatnot, that was an amazing time. I was like, holy shit. Like that's the crowd reaction and everything. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that.
I feel like that's the moment that your grandparents talked about when they talk about like moving pictures. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
this Chaplin fellow, look at him go. Like that's what it was.
Like one night we went and we saw this thing, moving pictures, and like like that awe. Yeah. So then the Sith, the Revenge of the Sith.
Well, hold up.
Okay, go ahead.
Before we jump into that.
Yeah.
In between the movies, there was that Clone Wars micro series.
The Samurai Jack.
Yeah. Tartakovsky did that one. Kalum, did you happen to catch that?
I love that. So during that time, I think that was around, was it 2002, 2003-ish, 4-ish? So kind of part of my love for Star Wars is that I always used to draw a lot, right? And so my goal in life was to be either a concept artist, and then I wanted to be an animator. So, hey kids, don't do that. Anyways, moving on. Student loans till I die. But at that moment, I was actually in animation school. And so when the Clone Wars, the 2D stuff hit, like, because Samurai Jack was all the rage back, and like, I was working on 2D animation at the time. So like in my classes and my teachers and everything, like Samurai Jack, like all the Adult Swim stuff was like, that's what we were looking to as far as inspiration goes for careers. Because we're like, dude, these guys are making like adult-like cartoons. We're kind of adults. We can do this stuff. Yeah, like Space Ghost or like, even like C-Lab and all those guys. But like Samurai Jack was really cool because of the animation style. And then when those Clone Wars cartoons hit, I remember going to the labs at my school to like burn the DVDs, like movie files, so I could study like frame by frame the animation style. And I saw Grievous on that thing. I was like, this is going to be the Darth Vader killer. This is amazing.
That's why I brought up, because we're doing Star Wars, but because that's a big part of something with Revenge of the Sith that we'll get to.
Well, see, I have to say also that like I have an unpopular opinion regarding that show. I love the story, and I love like these little like short tales, and then obviously the Grievous origin of his cough and all that, like and even like the capture of Palpatine, right? Like all that's in there, and I like that a lot. But like the animation style and like how some of the Jedi seem so overpowered in it was a huge turnoff for me.
There's a hyperbole to a lot of that.
Of
more
course,
in the micro series than like the sequel one with the Palpatine. But I never felt. Yeah. The next time you ever see anything like that is probably the Force Unleashed games. Like just wacky Wild Force.
Yeah, wacky Wild Force.
I liked because I felt like that was the action that I was looking for in Attack of the Clones, and I didn't quite get that. And so, like, I mean, one of my favorite little stories on that is just it was the ARC Troop. It's completely silent, right? There is no talking whatsoever. Yeah, and I'm like, that's what I want. I want to see, because again, like the stormtroopers that we know, right, can't hit anything. They're kind of a joke. But like the clone troopers, for whatever reason, I now really do appreciate. I think it's mostly because of their the style, right? It's like retro, these space look, and as I've gotten older, I kind of appreciate that style. But that story with just the hand signals and whatnot, I mean, that was amazing to me, right? And then even the Anakin fight with Asajj, that captured more emotion to me than what was in Attack of the Clones. So, like that kind of stuff, I was like, this is what I want to see on the screen, Like there was some definitely overpowered stuff, like the Mace Windu story was cool. Yeah, but like I like there was one thing in there that I loved. It was punches. Like when he was like he loses his lightsaber, I think, for a second, but then he just starts punching people with the Force.
He's breaking the droids, throwing shrapnel, just tearing them up.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's to me like the Legend of the Jedi or whatnot. Like this Jedi. I mean, that's what it. Imagine when I hear like a full power Jedi. Yeah. So it kind of captured that for me. And then I think the style itself was, again, just because of my own personal what I was doing at that time, it really hit home with me.
All right,
Bobby, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now talking about like the Force being very outlandish there. There's a kid that's in that whole sequence with Mace Windu. Would it make you feel better if it's all his perspective? That's what he's witnessing. That's what it looks like this guy's doing.
Yeah.
Like,
It would.
This guy's the best.
And I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it since it first came out on DVD. So it would probably behoove me to go back and give it another watch. But I kind of watched it and I kind of felt like it was a novelty thing. Like it never seemed like it counted to me. Like I was like,
There's little
okay.
dialogue in the first series. Very little dialogue.
Yeah,
It's very visual.
yeah, for sure. And like I recognized that some things were cool, but it kind of seemed more style over substance to me. Which is why like I prefer the Clone Wars series over it.
Yeah, I get that. And I the one impact it had for me, again, because, again, at the time of my life, I was really big into 2D animation. Again, kids, don't ever do that because nobody draws anymore.
Yeah.
But
do not follow your dreams. That's what we're here to tell
yeah,
you.
do not follow your dreams. Listen to your parents. Go get a good job.
Take the practical solution, get your LL Bean catalog, and get out of here.
Don't follow your dreams. But I do think that helps open the door for Clone Wars series, which when the Clone Wars series came out, again, it was the animation style I wasn't into. Like, I didn't like the character design.
I hated the movie. I hated the movie. Like the one that came out in the theater.
You don't like Baby Jabba?
I do. That wasn't even. It was all the. It was all the Sky Guy, R2E. It was all that.
Big bot.
Exactly. Exactly. It was just a huge turnoff. And actually, I didn't watch like the first 2 seasons of Clone Wars as a result of it because I was like, nope, I don't want to be anywhere near this thing. And then around the 3rd season, people started telling me like, no, dude, you have to watch this. And then I was like, they were right.
Because I think that came out. The movie came out after Revenge of the Sith.
After Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
So
I think I actually avoided Clone Wars movie because I was like, I'm kind of done for now.
Right.
Like, and I know we're supposed to be positive.
Right.
I was taking a Star Wars break after Revenge of the Sith because
we're taking a break, like a relationship. Like, we're
gonna go see other franchises. Hey, what's this Lord of the Rings stuff? I'm going to go hang out with these 7 guys, and we're going to deliver a room.
Spider-Man and Daredevil at the time.
Yeah. After seeing Daredevil, I'm like, I'm coming back. I'm sorry. Oh, God, they made an Electro movie. Okay.
Now, I think Revenge of the Sith had a solid rollout. Like, their rollout seemed more similar to me to Phantom Menace than Attack of the Clones did. Like, the trailers seemed to have, like, good energy behind them. The Force Friday was there for it and was more prevalent.
The episode 3 trailer probably is my second favorite.
Yes, sir.
Because it's that shot when Anakin turns his face and he's got the dark side eyes. I was like, sign me the hell up. You know? And it's got the little Darth Maul like.
Dude, it's so funny how like you zero in on these little moments, but you do. Yeah. You do.
It's like I used to say that to my brother. Like anytime it was like, we were in trouble, I was like, shakaka. Like, it's like Dad's gonna kick your ass. Anyway, but the trailer, because I remember the lead up to Attack of the Clones. Everyone's like, it's a lot more, action packed, and it's a lot more action than Phantom Menace. Because everyone was like, oh, politics are boring, and I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like leading up to, Revenge of the Sith, I remember everybody like, this is it. This is the amazing moment. We're really sure you're gonna like this one because Anakin's gonna go nuts, right? Like it's gonna be all dark side all the time.
All dark side all the time.
So, and then I watched it, and I was just like, so again, I had actually really liked, for some reason, I really got into Palpatine's character.
Oh, so, definitely.
When Return of the Jedi came out, and when I was going back through like the whole special edition and all that stuff, for whatever reason, I found him to be extremely interesting because I'm like, who the hell is this old guy? Why is he a prune, and why does Darth Vader fear him? Like, what happens? Like, what is that relationship? Because when you're, kind of thinking through this, you're like, who the hell controls Darth Vader?
Yeah.
Like, the dude is a monster. Who's behind him? And you see this wrinkly old guy, you're like, what is that?
And I feel like we justified it because of the lightning. Like, oh, it's the lightning powers. It's the lightning. It's the lightning powers. He doesn't have the lightning powers.
I'll even justify it when he's like, dude, he removed handcuffs with his finger. Like, that guy's amazing. So, like, it was just one of those things where it was like, to me, and that's it. I value watching characters. It's like, yeah, there's brute strength, right? Anybody can calculate brute strength, right? I mean, we as guys size each other up every damn day and all that good stuff. What I kind of find interesting about characters is like it's the what don't you know? Like,
Right.
how intelligent are they? What are they kind of playing with? So, like, for me, I was like, how did this guy become, who he is and in control of the Empire? Got into his story a little bit. So, watching The Phantom Menace, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting because he's kind of playing these people and, like, moving the chess pieces. I'm like, he's a mastermind. He's a genius. This is going to be great. Then I see Revenge of the Sith, and I'm like, they just turned him into a cackling idiot. Like, I was... and, like, I'm just like, what the hell happened? Like, that was unexpected. So, part of the Revenge of the Sith disappointment for me was I didn't think it was kind of like, hey, what are you doing today? You want to be a Sith Lord? Yeah, sure. Cool. Okay. Let's go kill some kids.
I'll tell you, that cackling madman kind of was a turnoff to me as well.
Mad with power.
But see, that's what it was. There was one scene that saved it for me, and it was when he was hanging on to, like, the Senate thing and, like, looking down at Yoda, and he's, like, laughing like an idiot. And I was like, dude, he has been waiting his entire life for this moment. Like, this is joy for him. This is it. He's living in his moment.
Yeah.
And that's what made me kind of look at it differently. Go ahead, Gort.
That scene where he's hanging?
Yeah.
That just always makes me think Nicholson Joker.
Yes. 100% same.
Okay, you just changed that entire scene because you said that. So fine. Yeah.
But yeah, I think Palpatine stole the show on the whole prequel trilogy. And I also think that, like, it's weird now because I thought it was a little too heavy politics at the time too. But, like, now I kind of miss some of the politics in the sequels.
It gives reason.
Yeah.
It's back to what I said with the original Star Wars movie. My friend said, like, what are you rebelling against? What's it about? You don't have much of that reason. You get all of it in the prequels. But in the new movies, too, it's not really there. Yeah. You're sort of back to those basics, which I'm not. I have no problem with that either.
And I think there's an element.
It would be nice to get a little more information.
Yeah. And I think there's an element to it that just shows, like, how much of a maniac George Lucas can be if, like, gone on unchecked. Like, he can just be a complete Looney Tune. Like, no, like, have him go into a little diner with a forearm guy and give him a hug.
I'll make sure his pants are falling down. Pull him up.
Exactly. Like,
yeah.
Like, it's just like, like somebody put a bell on this guy so we know when he's coming around.
Give him a bushy mustache, dude.
In a moment like that, that's a stupid character, but I love it.
Yeah, me too.
It's fun.
See, and that's the thing too. It's like I actually like that scene. I don't know if I found too many. I don't know if I want to admit that. Maybe I just like pancakes and I like dive in greasy spoons and stuff. But like for me, it's one of those things where it's like I love and hate it at the same time because it's like this is stupid. Why is this good? Then I'm like, it shows like world though. Like, oh yeah, it's a major city planet. They're gonna have some place to go get like coffee. Like it builds on that, right? And I'm like, yeah. So
I think I can't knock them too. I think you can make the argument that there's more world building in the prequels than there is in any other Star Wars film ever.
Maybe. Probably ultimately. I think there was a lot of it in Solo, like a lot of background, a lot of just day to day.
That's fair.
Like you see in the earlier portion of the movie, you see a lot.
I was gonna say day to day life because like anything that's on Coruscant, it's like there's a diner, there's a club, there's a seedy district. There's like anything that you would find in a major metropolitan area. Like, oh yeah, we got that too. So it kind of helped like almost ground it a little bit more because it's like, oh yeah, there's a shady side of town you don't go to. I got it. Like so. Because I don't think we saw any of that in the original trilogy, right? It was like, hey, there's a desert. Hey, boom.
Right.
There's a forest. So.
You get more of it in the special edition, I think, than you did in the original movies.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the Cloud City shots, be it just a window or just people cruising around in a cloud car.
So did you dig into the Clone Wars at all, the series?
So we took a break.
Right.
We were seeing other franchises for a little bit.
Correct.
I was exploring, finding myself and whatnot, but I didn't. So what kind of hooked me into what? Because I was kind of done for a while. I was like, I'm just gonna relax and just enjoy what I enjoy as for Star Wars, right? So I kind of got back heavy into the original trilogy, and then I think what brought me back, what kind of piqued my interest in the Clone Wars was I started hearing that it was getting darker, right? And I kind of that more adult tone, and that's kind of going back to the animated series. I like the fact that it was, I say violent, but there was action, right? Like clone troopers died in that thing. When I saw the trailers for the Clone Wars movie, the Sky Guy and all that stuff, I was like, they're going total kids. Like I can't at this moment. Mm-hmm. When they started bringing in the Mandalorians to the Clone Wars, then I got into it. And I was like, Death Watch? Okay, cool. Like, because one of the things that I had gotten into was the Bounty Hunter game. I think it was like for PS2 at the time. But that kind of explored Jango's story.
That's right. I do remember that.
And I loved it, right? I was like, I'm going to be a Mandalorian when I grow up. And then,
do you remember there was an era where like Lucasfilm was putting out like 1 to 2 great video games a year, it seemed like?
Yeah. Because, I mean, that's even like...
even some of the bad ones were still good.
Yeah, like, or at least
PlayStation
fun.
Had Starfighter, which was not good. But we had Rogue Squadron to,
Pod Racer.
Pod Racer was great. What was the other one that like Rogue Squadron you mentioned? Yeah. Oh, it was like a Clone Wars game, but it was like Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, you could like jump in vehicles and stuff.
You walked around as like a tiny person.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good games during that time, and I think that's honestly like I kind of took a break from the movies and the media, but I jumped into the video games. So I got into like
Old Republic.
I mean that's one of my favorites. Like
I think that's one of everybody's favorites.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that because we'll be here for another 3 hours. But,
right.
As Bobby has seen from my Nerd Rage posts, it's like, God, you got a lot of time to type. But anyways, so like Knights of the Old Republic, the Bounty Hunter game. I even got into Star Wars Galaxies, which was the MMO, like where you could run around and live your Star Wars adventure, right? I did that. So I guess I didn't really take much of a break. I still texted Star Wars once in a while and be like, "Hey, what's up?" And stuff. But that's what kind of kept me going.
Were you still collecting during this era?
So the collecting, not really, because at that time I was moving around, right? So like, when the special editions came out, I was still living at home, right? So I had a very small room. I had like maybe a few things, right? I moved out. During this time, I had moved out with my now wife. We were living in like a tiny 1-bedroom apartment, and we were just trying to get stabilized within our own lives, you know? So like collecting always took a backseat because I was like, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I sure as hell don't have the space. So I would pick up maybe like, I actually held on to my Power of the Force figures that I had picked up way back when.
Well, they were
up until about, and then, I sold them for like $10. It was amazing.
Oh yeah, what did you do? Go to Wendy's after that?
Yeah, I think I needed some gas. I was like, can I just kind of get home? Here's an Emperor Palpatine. Would you like that? Anyway, so like the collecting stopped, right? And I kind of went into a collecting freeze for a lot of years because we were moving and we didn't have the space. I always wanted to, but I just couldn't.
So real quick before we get into the Disney era, Black Series pops up, and you eventually did partake in 112 stuff, right?
Yeah.
How easy or difficult was it for you to jump from 3 3/4 to 6-inch in regard to Black Series, or Star Wars rather?
So I think my primary angle for 3 3/4 was, even though I wanted the figures, it's kind of more of the the lucrative.
Oh collection. Yeah, just rolling in it.
Yeah. Dude, I was going to retire on all those red cards. It was going to be great.
You take that, student debt.
Yeah, I can go to school again. I'm going to be a master's degree. Yay! So the one thing that I did like about the 3 3/4 was the vehicles. So that was kind of always, again, kind of where the vehicles are always appealing to me.
It's the charm. That's the charm of 3 3/4.
When I started getting older and appreciating more of just the characters in general, and like kind of, it was also too kind of like just nerdom in general, right? Like it's being more accepted. Like you can find more stuff. Like, when I started seeing the details of the Black series, I actually missed out on probably the first few waves of Black series. I didn't get into it 3 years ago, maybe. But I was like, I need every character. These are amazing. Like, yeah, I don't need the tiny little 3 3/4. Like, this is a good representation of the character. Like, hell yeah, I want a Greedo. Like, look at his cool jumpsuit. Like, looks amazing in Black series. So, yeah, I mean, Black series I jumped in on more so than probably 3 3/4.
And that you were doing mainly for the enjoyment and not for the investment at that point.
Yeah, because I was like, I want representations of these characters, and that's when I kind of started getting into the collecting more of. I've about, was it 4 years ago? 4 years out of house, right? So we were finally established. Like there was no more moving, there was no more leasing and whatever. A home and an established space. So some other things happened in my life. It was basically a midlife crisis, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to collect because that's what I've always wanted to do. I want my little space. That's what I've always wanted. There, I went off on the deep end and just started buying everything, much to my wife's dismay. But like Star Wars was part of it. I was like, give me the Black series now. Like I want a shelf of Black series. Right. And then from there on out, it's just been like, pretty much everything. I kind of go some 3 3/4 vehicles. Like again, I'm sitting here staring at a B-wing that I got because I like the B-wing. But anything figure-wise, I'm going Black series. Anything vehicle-wise, I'll go 3 3/4.
So let's dive into the sequel era with kind of both feet. Go ahead and talk about your experience regarding hearing that Disney took it and that new movies are coming, and seeing 7 and your initial reactions.
I think so. During that time, it was kind of like reliving the prequel era for the hype train, because I was excited about it because, again, with the animation background that I had, which I did not go into, but I learned a lot about Disney and just the industry in general, right? So when and my wife and I were big Disney fans. We have season passes and all that crap. So we were like, I was fine with it. And it was one of those moments where they're like, the next series, 7, 8, 9. I'm like, no way. That was never supposed to happen. I'm never supposed to see what happens after.
Right.
And it was kind of like the same thing with the prequels, like back in the day. Like, oh my God, we're going to hear about the origin of Darth Vader. So it kind of rekindled a lot of that mystery and like, ooh, I can't wait for it. How are they going to do this? So I saw it as a very positive thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, after you saw the movie, did you have any connection to the EU and have to battle with that at all in your head?
I did, but I kind of always I read Heir to the Empire, loved it, loved Thrawn, Dark Empire, all that stuff, like the Cloned Emperor and all that stuff. I liked that stuff, but I kind of always knew in the back real because it wasn't on screen. So when I approached the expanded universe, I was like, "This is nice.
This is for funsies."
Yeah, this isn't real. Like it's just kind of fun. And then even like when they got into the far out like stuff, like what are those guys? The
Yuuzhan Vong.
Yeah, I was out.
Yeah,
I was like that water era. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like all that stuff, I was like, yeah, no, that's too far removed from what I care about.
Yeah, I hear you there.
So like when I saw, Force Awakens, I didn't really have that. Well, where's Thrawn and where's all this stuff? I didn't have those hangups because I kind of knew, like, it's kind of like the video games, right? Like I know they're not part of canon. Like, a lot of people like
those are a lot looser too than anything else ever was.
Yeah. So I didn't have those kind of expanded universe hangups.
And then Rogue One.
All right, so I really liked Force Awakens, even though it was kind of a rehash, but I liked the updated visuals and just the general direction it went.
Mm-hmm.
Rogue One, I didn't like it at first.
Mm.
And I was kind of like, this is kind of a disjointed, the timing's off, it's kind of weird.
Gort's not crazy about Rogue One either.
No.
I was going to say, when I came out of it, I was like, this is a glorified fan film. Gosh, I should never have said that.
Wow.
But I've learned to appreciate Rogue One. Like, I actually just watched it, was it 2 nights ago? Because I just put it on. Because the action sequences, like I like the fact that there's like the shady side of the rebellion, right? The spies.
I do too.
It's the wartime stuff. Like, yeah, there's good guys, there's bad guys, but war is a gray area. You got to do some shady stuff for your side to win. So
it's
like,
really like the first slice of life Star Wars film. Like this is, you know what I mean? I think that a lot.
I think my least favorite moments of that is, or what feels weird to me, is the whole Jeddah time frame. I know you're a big Toot Tubes guy.
Oh,
He's a cool character. But for some reason, like Saw Gerrera just didn't. I feel like there was a lot lost probably in the reshoots.
Yeah.
So that's kind of another thing too.
I'd like to see like a prior edit of the movie.
The original vision.
Something like that. Like whatever was like a full edit before they were like, we messed up. Let's fix things.
Yeah, I would too.
I want to know what that was. There's a ton of footage, and I haven't watched features on the DVD.
They don't,
whatever it is.
They don't really go into it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious to see that. I don't know how that would change my, thoughts on the movie, but I do have to watch that movie again at some point. But like, I really need time away from that one. I did.
I've learned to appreciate it. It's kind of like everything, right? Like I don't know if it's just me and myself, and I just walk out disappointed with everything in my life. But that's another story. But like nothing appeases me anymore. But like the more that I watch Rogue One, like, I mean, I was just watching this, again, like the other night, and the part that gives me goosebumps is when the rebels drop out of, and it's like, the music flares up. It's like da da da, and I'm like, back to the original like TIE Fighter stuff. I'm like, the ships are gonna blow stuff up. Like that was exciting for me.
And it's probably the best space fight we've got in Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean,
my wife said that.
Yeah.
The
last, the whole Scarif battle I actually like. Like I like the tactics they were using, and then there's a lot of good stuff. Scarif is good. Of course, the Darth Vader scene blew my damn mind. Like I love that thing. It took me back to like the Darth Maul scene. I'm like, I don't care what this movie is. I'm gonna watch it for this 2 minutes. So some of the beginning stuff.
Just real. I always have to interject this, but my favorite thing about that Darth Vader sequence has little to do with Darth Vader. It's that one rebel trooper's face that like is like, to me, like tells the whole story. Like because in my mind, like Vader would be like a legend, so like it would be rare that you would see him, let alone heard somebody that would have seen him, like it would have just been like a dragon, and then like when he sees him and realizes what he's looking at, and it's like all in his face, like we're not making it out of here. Nobody's making it out of here.
Terrified, just start shooting. Like
yeah.
What else am I gonna do? So, but so I mean, like I've learned to like. I actually liked, the more that I watch it, the more I like Krennic. I like that actor.
Yeah, me too.
I like the fact that while it's gotten to the point where it makes the sacrifices that they had to pull off, it made the Death Star more of an imposing thing to me.
Yeah.
Because like before it was like, oh yeah, it's a bad guy station, blah blah blah. But it's like even like
that eclipse shot before it fires.
Yeah.
There's a lot of amazing visuals that I was picking up on that. Like, yes, that eclipse shot, like I want that for my desktop. It's just like boom.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, like even the fact that it can wipe out an entire city. Like it's subtle things like that they showed in that movie where it can't, it can blow up a planet, sure, but it can pinpoint anything and just blow you all to hell.
Right.
It's fine. So, yeah.
And then I guess the most controversial, the Last Jedi.
I just have really unpopular opinions, but actually, no. Let me back that up. When I saw it, I was disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I was kind of like, I had that moment where I was like, am I just reliving like the prequel stuff where I thought the story was going to go a certain way and I'm disappointed it didn't live up to what was in my head? And then I watched it again because I was like, I think I'm at that point in my life where I have to see stuff twice just to make sure that I got everything. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Like The Last Jedi, like Luke was never one of my favorite characters at all.
Same.
I'm not. Anytime there's a character, I'm the hero. Like I'm out.
Yeah,
because I'm like
the Cyclops syndrome.
Cyclops, Superman to an extent. Like I just the All American goody two shoes. Like I appreciate it. It's not me. So when Luke, the whole theme of like the Last Jedi and like people buying into this legend and then being disappointed by the man, like I love that because I'm like that is real shit to me.
Yeah,
like that is like that's my real life. Like that's something that I even like what he was talking about, like just the hubris and everybody believing like the Jedi and the Sith, like it doesn't matter because what, like all that kind of stuff, like to me really resonated after I kind of got out of my initial shock.
Right. And then Solo. Or Soilo. You soy boy?
Soy. I
just find all of that to be super obnoxious.
Again, it's kind of one of those things like the more I watch it, the more I appreciate it. I thought it was fine to begin with.
Yeah.
I kind of like agree with you. Like using that trailer set that tone for me.
Yeah.
And that kind of like Western, like
the
bar, like, and I was kind of expecting more of that. So I think the guy did a good job. I think that at the end of the day, it was a fine product, right? Like there's a few things that was wrong, but the Kessel Run was a little bit of a disappointment, but
something, you called it a product, and if it was more of a movie and less of a product, I think everybody would like it more.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I like that movie too, but it could be better.
But I also think that movie, that is the worst Star Wars rollout we've ever seen.
Yeah, because that was terrible.
Exactly. Yeah, like it was horrendous. I mean, like I remember telling people that it was out and people not knowing. I remember telling people that it was a Star Wars movie and people not knowing. Like it was horribly marketed. Horribly. And to have all that money invested in it, I just think is a huge error. They should have just treated that movie like it was Tootsie. That's going to be my reference for this one. But just giving you plenty of trailers, giving you plenty of information, just like, look, we're just having fun on this one. Like we don't need to hide anything. You know how his story turns out. I don't know.
I don't think it advanced the character for me. Like I didn't come out of it with a better appreciation of Han, because I mean I always loved Han, right? Like it's just
I think it advanced everybody but Han.
Yeah, I think that's fair too.
Yeah, I mean, like Lando, you kind of get a lot more. I like Lando in that movie.
Han is like an element of Star Wars that I don't feel like Star Wars has ever really gotten back again. And it's like there's something about having this character around in this universe to constantly tell you that this whole idea is stupid that makes it better. It's like this. It's like the fact check of like, okay, we're in this, and there's a rebellion, and there's a this, and there's a that, and now I've got a laser sword, and there's a magical force, and he's like, well, that's dumb. I don't believe that. They've never really brought that archetype back, and I kind of feel like you need that. You need like the whatever, like if it's bowling, like the bumper on the side of the bowling lane. He is that for that universe. And they've never really brought him back ever again. Even though they've attempted.
Kind of got they've attempted it. I think he's that real man in the situation. Right?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, dude, I got bills to pay. I got somebody after my ass because I owe money. Like, we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
It's like, again, kind of going to the super hopeful Luke. Like, those people are annoying to me in real life. Like, go away. Go do your coffee and just, whatever. Yeah. But like, the Han Solo it's kind of that reality check, right? Because it's like, this is a stupid idea. We're gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool. So.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap it up, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how much longer my phone is gonna last. But a couple quick questions. So where are you at in terms? So your collecting kind of started with buying some carded figures that no one ended up caring about as an investment. What do you collect Star Wars wise now?
So now I am fully in on Hot Toys. I think my first Hot Toys was actually Jedi Rey. That was like the first Hot Toys that I pre-ordered because I'm
Nice.
like, I want. So my approach to my collection is I see them as like art pieces, right? Like it's not toys on a shelf. Like these are representations of something that I love, and I want the proper representation displayed, right? So like, it took me a while to buy it on Hot Toys because of the price,
Right.
But apparently I don't have an issue now, so that's fun. But yeah, like the Last Jedi stuff, like Rey was my first, and now I've probably have 15 or 20 of them.
I'll tell you, your Hot Toys display in that Maja case is breathtaking. Like it's really, really, really well done.
Oh, thanks, man. Like stresses me out, but yeah, it's been fun. So
It's
and that's
classy.
kind of why I went to the Maja case, right? Because I wanted, again, I'm trying to show my love for a franchise, right? Like, yeah, I have issues with some of the movies. At the end of the day, this is what makes me happy. Like Star Wars in general makes me happy, right?
Yep.
You know, a lot of other people, like the normies, don't really get it. I don't care. They're not coming into my house and looking at this stuff, right? So, it's this rabbit hole. I just got dropped off today. I found a Grand Moff Tarkin. I don't really need a Grand Moff Tarkin, but I kind of do. You know, like. Yeah. So
Someone
I'm going.
has to hold Vader's leash.
Exactly. I wonder if I can get a custom leash made.
Hook it right up to that chain on his cape.
Yeah. So like the Hot Toys Star Wars stuff, I'm definitely on. I'm kind of going back and collecting some of the vintage vehicles. Like again, I keep saying this damn B-wing, but when I went to Celebration, I found, and the Celebration was another whole like bucket list item for me, which was amazing.
Yeah.
But I found a booth that were selling like vehicle stands, right? So I have like a TIE Bomber and a B-wing, and I had to pre-order them, but they like my stands finally came in, so now I can properly display like the vehicles that I love. So I got to find space for that. So, yeah, it's it's a little bit of an obsession right now, but primarily Star Wars and Transformers and stuff. So,
Gord, how about Star Wars Transformers?
Oh God.
I've seen some reviews on those. I heard they're not good. So.
Gort, do you have any? Do you have I know what question I want to close with. Do you have any on your side that you want to ask before we start wrapping this up?
Let me see here. Well, the Hot Toys, when you've been picking them up, you picked up Rey first. Do you have a mix of just all the eras, or what exactly do you have?
Mix of the eras. So I actually. So I started on Black Series to start, right? Because that was my first representation of characters. And then I got into Figwarts because I'm like, oh my God, these are amazing, right? And then from Figwarts, I jumped to Hot Toys, which I probably should have just saved all my money and just went straight to Hot Toys. But hey, it's a journey. So for Hot Toys, I'm collecting most of the new stuff. I'll take that back. It's all over the place. I've got like Anakin, Dark Side Anakin. I've got Jedi Luke, Old Man Luke. Like it's all over the place. So any kind of like representations that I feel like are iconic, I'm getting. So like Return of the Jedi Luke, gotta have. Last Jedi Luke, I gotta have because that's what that was the Luke that made the most impact to me. I've got Empire Leia because that's my favorite representation of Leia, and then. After Carrie Fisher passing and watching the episode 9 trailer at Celebration, I had to run out and get Last Jedi Leia because that was like when I heard the Leia theme in the episode 9 trailer, I'm like, I need it. So now I've kind of got it set up to where I'm almost doing like before and afters. So I've got like
I know these feels. I got
yeah. Because it's like right now I'm looking at it and I've got Empire Leia and then right next to her is Last Jedi Leia, like the evolution of the character.
Yeah,
so as long as nobody figures out how much these actually cost, I think I can keep doing this. So
there was a question I wanted to ask you, and it just slipped my mind, I think. But oh, I know what it was. That piano of Leia's theme at the end of Last Jedi, like, cancel Christmas for me. Like, I'm a baby. I'm no good. Like, when it comes up, like, in memory of our princess Carrie Fisher, and that piano plays, I am utterly worthless.
Who the hell's cutting onions in this theater? What's going on here?
Like, I can keep my composure, but I feel like I'm like a house of cards. Like, if anyone were to poke me, I'm just like, my mother never loved me. You know, like, I'd just be a complete train wreck. Let me see. I know I wanted to kind of run some like rapid fire past you.
All right.
Favorite Star Wars character?
Boba Fett.
Favorite Jedi?
Say Obi-Wan.
Favorite Sith?
Oh, man. So many issues. We'll just go Vader.
Okay. And I'll just throw this one in there. I'm not sure. Favorite Force user in general? So I guess it either would be someone, it could be, from a video game or whatever. It doesn't have to be a Jedi or a Sith, or it could force your arm into say who you like better, Obi-Wan or Vader.
I was going to go more obscure, but so I'm going to say favorite Force user as of right now is the Sith Emperor from the Old Republic video game.
Okay.
And that's kind of a stretch. The way that they've set up, for anybody who doesn't know, that's the Old Republic MMO that came out a few years ago, right? So the stories and that, so it's like, it's kind of like World of Warcraft, but the individual character stories are amazing because each class has its own like story, right? So
Did you play all 8?
Yeah. Yeah. So some of those stories are probably some of the best Star Wars stories I've actually experienced. Throughout that game, I really got into like the Sith Emperor. I can't say his actual name, but the way that they introduced his powers and kind of like the ultimate villain, like that is my favorite for right now.
Nice. Favorite Star Wars movie?
Empire.
Least favorite?
I'm going to say, because of the disappointment, I'm going to say Revenge of the Sith.
Fair enough.
And people can send me hate mail. That's fine.
No, I think it'll be all right.
We'll supply his address in the comment.
So the last question, unless you got
anything. I just got uninvited to something.
Unless you got anything else, Gort. You got anything else?
I want to ask all kinds of Old Republic questions, but it's a big can of worms.
Yeah, and maybe we can revisit it.
Ask one.
Yeah, ask one.
Out of all the 8 storylines there for the classes, which one was your favorite and least favorite?
I like the Sith Inquisitor for my favorite.
Yes.
That was cool. And that kind of ties into the whole Emperor, why I like, was it Vitiate or whatever his name is? The least favorite was the Jedi Consular. I thought that was boring as hell. So I take it you played?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I didn't finish all the classes. I started all of them, but the Consular not being very interesting.
No, I was like, oh, we're gonna go cure a virus. That's. So let's just play through this and check through it. The Imperial Agent was a good one.
Sorry, my kid just got home and I was making sure it was my kid, not a stranger.
I was like, is that your favorite character? What are you doing?
Yeah, we're kind of, sort of. Sorry, sorry, forgive me.
We're past those questions. No. Yeah, the Imperial Agent was amazing, and then of course, like because of the whole Mandalorian thing, the Bounty Hunter was good. So,
Bounty Hunter was the first one I played, but that was in beta. When the game went live, I went full Inquisitor. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was, and then it's like all the Empire ones were great, and even the Jedi one was pretty cool.
That ties into the Emperor.
Yeah, which was kind of the reason why I didn't like that one is it's like you beat the Emperor, and I'm like, well, you just beat the game. That's stupid. So
Kinda.
yeah.
What makes that class also a lot more interesting is the Darth Revan book.
Oh yeah, I didn't get into the
big
Revan.
tie-in.
Yeah. I do like the fact that they tied in the Force Ghost with the Jedi. Was it Guardian?
Yeah.
Okay, so that the whole like Force Ghost thing, like it was very. The Jedi Guardian was the most Star Wars like story of the movies to me, so that was kind of good. But the Sith Inquisitor, that was just fun to be evil. So
Yeah, I really liked the Trooper, like the revenge story.
yeah, Trooper was good too. So and then Bobby, if you don't, I mean, throughout the story you can choose light or dark. You know, you see your decisions. Right. So it's kind of funny because it's like I try to play it as I would normally, like for my bounty hunter. I'm like, yeah, I'll let you. Sith. I was like, nope, I'm embracing the dark side. Let's kill everybody. Like dark side.
Dude, it's funny. I can't do it, man. I can't do it. Like
that's because you haven't played Sith yet, like legitimate Sith character.
Yeah, like whenever I played Knights of the Old Republic, like I could never. I mean, sometimes I ended up making dark side decisions, but it was by accident. You know, I thought I was doing the right thing. But like, I could never, like, when it's like, dude, I could slaughter this entire town right now, and I'm getting way, big dark side points. But I'm like, I couldn't do it. But man, I have kids playing. I'm not doing this. I'm like, that shit fucks with me. It's like, not to get too far off track, but like Modern Warfare 2, was it the one where you were like in the airport and you were a terrorist undercover, and there's like all those innocent people running around? Did you ever play that? Anybody?
No,
I heard about it. Yeah.
So you're like this undercover, you're undercover. You're infiltrating this Russian terrorist cell, and you're in this airport, and they're just gunning down civilians, and like causing hysteria, and like you're supposed to just do it, and I can't, dude. I shoot at the ceiling. It still makes them run, and I like don't have to shoot anybody. Like I can't bring myself to do it. Like I'm like, this is too fucked up.
Yeah, that's a little too real. Like
yeah. No. Of course, that's way more real than cutting somebody off with a laser sword. But
Knights of the Old Republic, I couldn't do anything bad in that. Like I had to play it like solid. That's just how I felt at the time.
Yeah.
But when you run into a Vader moment and you have that incompetent officer, are you going to choke that guy, or are you just going to let him slide? Because that's what you get in the Star Wars Old Republic.
Yeah, that's cool, because there's greater good to be done there. It's like, this is, look, you know what I mean? Like you're a sacrifice, but you're going to make the team more efficient.
Yeah. So the scary thing about that, like,
we just went up 10%.
Yeah. All right. No, like when I would play like Old Republic when I was younger, I'd choose like, I'm gonna do the noble path. Now that I'm older, I'm like, fuck you, electrocute. Like, I'm just like, I'm done. Like, oh, you screwed that up. Okay, well, hi. Here's a force choke. Stuff. It's just, so I'm kind of worried about myself, but it's kind of funny how those are kind of more tests.
The Old Republic game is fully voiced, so your character has a voice, unlike Knights of the Old Republic. And it really adds something. Steve Blum doing the bounty hunter, he just has that cold, nasty voice, like burn everybody to death.
I need to watch. I need to watch the YouTube movies of those.
So the movies, the cutscenes are amazing. So like,
there's so many. Well, I guess what's on YouTube? Like just the main story, not the actual questing, right? Because you can find the story. I mean, they're like 5 hours long, but I mean, you can find the stories for every, like the major cutscenes for every class, right? But then just the opening, like just the cutscenes, like the sizzle reels that they did, like the whole Darth Malgus stuff. Like, when I see those lightsaber fights, I'm like, I want that in a movie. Like, that's, give me that. Like, and then Malgus himself, like throughout that game, like there was a time where it's like, not to spoil anything for anybody, but there's a choice, right? I'm like, I want to join him. He's got the right idea. Yeah.
Why can't I join him? He's got the, so, but, I mean, there's really good characters that come out of that.
Fallen Emperor, is that what it's called?
There's Knights of the Fallen.
No, not the expansion stuff, but like there's the dungeon where it's like he's presenting you that choice.
Oh yeah. I forget what the hell it's called, but it's basically like a super weapon, and he's taking over, and he's like, we can't survive like this. We have to move forward. And I'm like, you make a lot of sense. Why can't I just join you right now? Like, what? Anybody else
Yeah, it's a moment where basically the guy has control of like a battle station, and it's kind of that Emperor moment, reaching out like to Anakin, except that you have the ability to say yes or no. Ultimately, you don't join him; you kill him. But
Yeah. But he's sitting there talking about, he's like, we need to be more tolerant. Tolerance builds strength. We need to welcome more people to build our forces. I'm like, it's kind of the right idea. Anybody else? No? All right. Well, I guess we got to kill you.
So to close it up, to wrap it up, what are your thoughts, anticipation, etc., regarding 9, and then the kind of future of Star Wars from here on out?
I'm excited about 9. Again, when they hit me with that Princess Leia theme in the trailer, I'm like, I don't care what happens, I'm in. I like the fact that 8 was jarring to people, because I think that snapped them out of a lot of the hero journey tropes that a lot of Star Wars films.
Yeah, I think Star Wars needed 8 more than it realizes.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen is, and this is what my prediction is. It's like, people hated 8, but I think in time that's going to age the best, and it'll be the favorite, kind of like Empire. Like, I think that's going to be, to me, 8 is Empire level-ish of like holy shit moments, right? So with 9, I'm hoping they wrap it up cleanly. I think they will. My concerns really is with JJ, because I'm like, okay, are we just going to get a Return of the Jedi rehash? But at the end of the day, I have to appreciate the fact that, hey, I'm in a Star Wars movie. Like, I do like the new characters. I like Rey a lot. Kylo is growing on me, even though he kind of reminds me of everybody in a comment section. But that's another story. Like, every time somebody's like arguing in a comment section, I just see like Kylo Ren, like with the long hair, and just you, like, that kind of stuff. But no, I'm like, when I heard Palpatine laugh at the close of that trailer, like I went nuts, and it just recaptured again. All these movie releases and Star Wars in general is capturing those moments and getting me like, holy shit, like pumped. Like, that's what I like about it. So
yeah. It's funny, man. Like, I think Kylo is my favorite character of the sequel trilogy. Like, aside from characters that I already loved. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think there's just a lot of depth and potential for depth with him that I see kind of more blatant on the surface, that I feel like the other ones you kind of got to dig a bit more for. Like, I feel like Finn, we've kind of seen the beginning and the end of Finn. Like, his story's done, I feel like. Yeah. Poe, I feel like there's more to uncover. I don't know if they will. And Rey, I feel like there's probably more to uncover, but it doesn't seem like there's just like this. Like, Rey seems like, you had to go through your parents' closet. You had to go through the shoebox. In the shoebox was a gift bag, and if you look in the gift bag, you'll find the gift. Where like Kylo seems like the present under the tree. Like, all you gotta do is unwrap it. It's right there. You just gotta unwrap it. But yeah,
I do hope they have some kind of like redemption arc for him. But because I also don't want them to take the easy way. I want him to be more complex than I think he is. And I hope they don't just cop out and just be like, oh, yeah, bad guy, Right. I do like the themes that they were playing with in 8, where he was conflicted, right?
Yeah.
Like, there is that good side in him, and it was conflicting. So, and then, Rey, I've always been kind of a Rey fan. Like, for some reason, I see it's kind of a weird thing, but I feel like she's like a little sister. So, like, I'm rooting for her for some reason.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah. You're probably Han Solo's daughter, but I'm not going to say that. But I still got my own fan theories and all that crap that I'm, like, I watch the movies. I'm like, do you see how he looked at her?
Yeah, me too, man.
That's a father that has regret.
Yeah.
Why do I know that? Because I'm a father with regret. Right. Anyways.
Right.
But I mean, like, there's all that. I'm excited for 9, and either way, it's going to wrap up, this trilogy nicely. So.
All right. So, Kalum, thank you for being our first guinea pig. I appreciate your time and talking with us, and thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, man, happy to be here. So this was super fun.
Beautiful. All right, then. Until next time. Gort, you want to say goodbye?
Yeah. No, it was good having you on and really getting to jump into Star Wars with you and kind of meet you proper. I really only got to say hello, goodbye at TFCon.
Yeah. TFCon's hard.
I'll be around. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you guys are
I'm
gonna
that guy with the weird.
You guys are gonna see each other very soon, actually.
Really?
Oh, cool.
Good.
All right, later.